I'm rewatching Outlander from the beginning, and let's talk about the similarities drawn between Claire and Jamie in episode 4 titled The Gathering. As always, this will have spoilers for the books and the TV show, so if you are looking to avoid those, please do keep on scrolling. So by episode 4, we're aware as viewers that both Claire and Jamie are trapped at Castle Leoch, given circumstances beyond their control. Claire is aware that she is there against her will and is essentially a hostage. Colm and Dougal both don't want her to return to Craignadoon, and Colm in particular wants to utilize her healing skills for the clan's disposal. And Jamie knows this too. He witnesses her trying to escape, but he also had her try to escape on him in the very first episode of the show. So I think he understands the feeling that Claire is showing him indirectly and feels very similarly himself. And Jamie's situation is equally, if not more, complex. He's not there by force, but his presence at Leoch is not entirely by choice. A lot of it is due to him being an outlaw at the time with a price on his head. And he knows that both Colm and Dougal are offering him protection for that. But that protection comes at a cost. Later on, when he doesn't give his oath at the oath taking, he says as long as his feet rests on the lands of the Clan Mackenzie, he will bow down to his uncle's wishes. And that means even doing things like showing his scarred back as a way to raise funds in the next episode, Rent, and going off with Dougal even though he doesn't want to in episodes like The Reckoning. So he's trapped by his duty and his survival, just like Claire is trapped there due to circumstance and time. And as we've seen in the previous 3 episodes, this ends up being the undercurrent of Claire and Jamie's developing friendship and relationship. Because Jamie doesn't just sympathize with Claire, he understands it in a way that nobody else at Leoch could possibly understand it. He knows what it feels like to have limited agency in this situation and to feel like your life is being directed in a very specific way that you have no control over. And he's very patient and understanding and kind with her. He listens to her without judgment. He offers her comfort without there being any strings. And he knows exactly what it feels like to be in her shoes. This scene in particular is when we get another example of that, when he provides some humor into a situation where he can tell that Claire is probably very upset about it. In the books, this doesn't happen before the gathering. It actually takes place after. And so this conversation is not one that is had in the books, but I think is utilized really well in the show to again reiterate that the two of them understand each other in a way that is beyond their scope right now. They don't really understand what's developing between them, but they know that they have commonalities with one another. And it's that shared experience that helps create that powerful understanding and vulnerability with one another leading up to when they're forced to marry one another in the 7th episode, The Wedding, where again, it's against both of their wishes initially, and then something shifts between them because for the first time, they're not facing this situation alone. They're in it completely together with one another. And I think they both can see in one another at that point that when they are together, they have more agency than if they worked alone. I think both of them realize once they are in partnership with one another that they are not as powerless as they once might have been when they were individuals, and that together there are so many more doors that open up for them to take agency over their lives. And we see this in the next episode, episode 5, titled Rent, where they have that sweet little fireside conversation after Jamie and Dougal's argument, where it's the first time they openly acknowledge that they're both caught in situations beyond their control and that they have a choice in how they handle it. And I think in one another, they're able to see a kindred spirit of sorts, someone who understands that feeling of being trapped, but willing to fight for a different outcome for themselves, which is why they're able to really set a foundation of not just lovers at first, but really friends and partners. And that bond isn't made by romantic gestures at the beginning. It's built on this very quiet understanding of one another and recognizing together in partnership that they can regain their own power with the help of someone who wants to help them. And I think that's again why their relationship throughout all of their many, many years together works, is because it's not just about their love for one another. It's about finding ways to survive, be resilient, fight for what they want, finding strength in the other person when you don't have enough strength in yourself. We see Jamie and Claire lean on each other in that way so many times throughout this storyline in the books and in the show. It all adds to us understanding why Jamie's loyalty to Claire runs as deep as it does, and also why Claire just instinctively trusts Jamie more than she does anyone else in her life. It's because at the beginning stages of their friendship and dynamic, they are able to see each other's individuality, vulnerability, and they choose that person to stand beside when they are fighting for their freedom and for their independence and for their autonomy over their lives again. I think knowing what we know now later on in the storyline and where these two end up with one another, being able to watch this scene at the beginning and know what the foundation they are setting here leads to is really magical.